Hello and welcome to another Walk Over History. We've landed in Hampshire today to walk along the highways and byways of the countryside in search of the history that's right underneath our feet. I'm joined on the walk today by two hardened Fleet Street hacks. That's Katie Aston and Jasper Humphries, who are perhaps more used to the tubes and trains of central London than this magnificent Hackney horse and wagonette, is it?
That's right.
A wagonette we're on this morning. What a lovely way to start the day. Okay, chaps. Everybody out.
The horse and carriage was all very stylish, but we were here to use our feet and map reading skills.
Well, that's true, yes. Right, first lesson in map reading. So how are you in map reading?
Hopeless, I have to say. Yeah, again.
Have you used a compass before?
No.
You can see the red bit is pointing that way, which means that's north.
Right.
We would start just south of Romsey, then head north along the canal and Tess Way via Michelmersh and Kings Sombourne. We'd then turn eastwards and walk along the Clarendon Way and finish up 12 miles later at Farley Mount. It's a walk involving a bawdy 18th century farce, an extremely heroic horse. And what on earth is he getting so excited about?
God for Harry! England and St. George!
Jasper and Katie are both London journalists. She's a features writer and he writes a society column. They're both city folk, more used to the backstreet bars of Fleet Street than the historical backwaters of Hampshire.
It is. Well, it certainly beats my flat in Fulham, I can tell you.
Our first stop was Broadlands, country residence of Lord Romsey and the former home of Lord Louis Mountbatten. We were met by Sarah Jane Tyrrell, the house's administrator. She told us about its long history and the official history of its occupants.
You could tell us a little bit about the house.
Well, there's always been an original dwelling here, which dates back to the 11th century. But I think probably it passed following the dissolution of the monasteries into private hands. And it was the second Viscount Palmerston who is really responsible for transforming it into the Palladian mansion that you see today.
So thank you very much.
Jasper's a gossip columnist, and the gossip doesn't come much more fruity than the tales about the Mountbattens.
Edwina, she's quite a racy lady in her time, you know, yes.
In what sense?
Well, she had a number of male admirers, should we put it like that?
Did she?
Gandhi, no less, which was very important.
You're
yes.
No, I simply refuse to believe it.
Yes,
and there weren't Indians at that time of the year, and that time it weren't all that common. So, you know, she was definitely ahead of her time.
Good grief.
Yeah, and of course Mountbatten was he was the governor out in India.
Yeah.
So that's how that friendship started.
And her husband's past was equally racy.
Well, he had an equally sort of quite lively private life, and of course, I think all the same from his sort of sailor days. You know?
What are you suggesting about Lord Mountbatten?
He's a great guy.
Anyway, less of the gossip and more of the map.
Well, we're going to head up now and try and join the canal, which is on the map here over on the north side. North of us,
Right.
from where we are on here.
Right.
So your guess is that we head in which direction?
That way.
We left the Broadlands estate and headed north towards the town of Romsey and its canal.
Look at this.
There's Broadlands' former owner, Lord Palmerston. The great Victorian statesman ruthlessly promoted the interests of the British Empire, bombing Athens, torching the Summer Palace in Peking, quashing a mutiny in India, and leading Britain to victory in the Crimean War. We were soon meandering along the Romsey Canal. Built over 200 years ago, the canal originally ran all the way from Andover and was a vital industrial link for the county. But with the dawning of the age of the train, all but a few miles of the canal were filled in and converted to railway. Even so, we were surprised to see a signal box that seemed to be missing a vital ingredient.
What's that?
Is it me, or does there not appear to be a railway going through past that?
I think we're onto something here. I think it could be TARDIS. You know,
It's a sighting.
It's been landed.
Yeah.
Well, it says over there, entrance in Plaza Parade. So should we go and have a look?
Yeah.
This isn't me. Well, not 100 years ago, I hope, no. Maybe one of my predecessors.
The century-old signal box turned out to be a unique piece of transport history rescued by the local community from rack and ruin. Some artists of the future were being given a history lesson by Dick Hewitt, the man behind the box's restoration.
Sorry, we butted in on. Can we join in? Can we join in? Yes. And what are you drawing there?
Brilliant.
And
What's that?
That's the sticker on the window over there.
Is there over there?
Do you like trains?
No. Yeah, I can't.
Have you? You've driven one?
And what's that? It looks
Cloud.
looks like a sheep. You get there's a sheep.
So it's nice having a signal box by your school then. It's something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very old and it still works like it does, like it did.
So the box here has been here for quite a few years. It's actually very old. It's over 100 years old because in Victorian times, of course, the railways were the main form of transport. To go from the canals, we've actually got the canal at the end of the site, funnily enough. But then the railways came along, and for many, many years, the main form of transport, and very important to a place like Romsey, because they brought new goods in, coal in for a much cheaper price, and they took farm machinery and farm goods out and so on and so forth. So it had a big impact on the economy until the age of the motor car, of course, during this century.
So why is this here now?
It's been saved actually as an educational resource. It was going to be demolished, and fortunately the head teacher of the school here actually suggested saving it, and there's a group of us now who are looking after restoring it, and there's various things that we can do with it, and we can show you what happens in the box.
Absolutely. Well, the kids are arriving, so we may as well pull a few levers and see what goes on.
Yep, that's what it's all about. Right, well, there's one or two things that we do in the signal box here. First thing that we can do is we can get the signal to wave up and down. Can you see the signal outside there?
Yes.
All right, now if I pull this lever here, all right, and look, I'm always using the clock.
Like a runaway train, Dick entertained the kids with his levers and locomotive
What does
chit-chat.
that mean?
Red, stop.
Do you think that means stop?
Yeah.
You think it means go? Here we are. What does that mean?
That's stop.
You've been on
I
a
think
train
as
to
they're
London.
having their lesson, we've
Well,
got to sneak
somewhere,
off, don't you?
Do you think so?
Somewhere in the building, there's
okay.
someone who's controlling all the traffic, just like this.
Thanks a lot. See you later. Enjoy it.
Have a go. Don't work too hard.
Okay.
Bye.
Jasper and Katie looked like they needed a rest, so we decided to take advantage of the local version of the tube.
Well, according to the map, there's a railway runs along here, so we may as well do the first part of the journey by rail, don't you think?
Okay. Well, as long as we get there on time.
Oh, I think so. It's a regular service.
Oh, but it's British Rail, don't forget.
It's a bit slow.
That's true.
Yeah.
I wonder which branch line we're going to go off on here.
They would probably be axed it anyway, so we'll end up in the ditch.
Yeah, so let the train take the strain. Actually, I think we've come to the end of the line.
Yep.
And we have, in fact, let Colin take the strain. So thank you very much, Colin. Much
Thanks,
appreciated.
Colin. Lovely.
See ya.
Right.
Don't say that we don't help you out
Yeah.
and make it easy for you by not having to
Get a
walk the
nice
whole
job for you, Department of Transport.
After our well-earned rest, we carried on out of Romsey up the canal. However, there was a certain lack of faith in the navigator.
I'm feeling pretty lost, Nick. I mean, I don't know about you.
Thanks for your confidence in my map reading. Look,
Don't worry,
let me give you a bit of a map reading lesson
It
here.
could be a
okay?
bit of a rebellion going on here.
We know which way is north, right? And we're travelling along this river here, and we know that we've got to this point because we've just passed that little tributary.
Right.
Fish up ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be a fish
Watch
farm.
out for the
Is it a fish farm?
See, it's all
But it looks like a porpoise. What's it?
maybe it's a very large fish. You
Oh,
never
is
know,
it?
do you?
Do they have porpoises here?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes by accident, and sometimes on porpoise.
Yes, in fact, the fish-like symbol means you can fish on the river. We were heading north to the tiny hamlet of Michelmersh, which sits overlooking the Tess Valley, and whose church boasts a rather unique and very old wooden tower.
Now that's unusual. Look at that.
Oh,
Hello. You
I go back.
Watch it.
She was
Comedy
very
moment on the
graceful.
stroll there.
Yes.
But look, there's a wooden tower on the church.
It was one of the many
Hello.
passions
Hello
of
there.
local historian
made
Paul
it.
Gardner.
Yeah.
Now, just look at this tower here. Now, you have not seen a tower like this before.
You're right.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not just the outside that's timber, but it's on a heavy timber frame.
Right.
This means it rots. It has to be renewed, and they have great difficulty with this because down there at the base, can you see at the base there?
Yeah.
The stone foundations are Saxon.
Ah.
So we're looking at a very old church.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we go have a look
Lovely.
inside?
Let's
Yeah.
come to the porch. Come, let's
Right.
see.
Paul was definitely the man in the know since he'd been commissioned to write an historical guide of the area, and as we were about to find out, he's more than a bit of a performer. He told us most of St Mary's Church dated from the early 12th century, although it had been a place of worship since before the time of the Saxons. We walked into the tuneful tones of Catherine Edmonds, who was practicing for next Sunday's service, and who used probably the earliest form of amplification system around.
Such a tiny organ. such a big church.
Well, it is.
Are we going to get some music?
Yes, that is one of the problems about it, and which is why I had the idea of installing our acoustic pots.
Oh, high tech.
Yeah.
Well, very high tech. It goes back to ancient Greece and the Romans. They used them in their amphitheatres. They were made of bronze then, of course. Clay works just as well as bronze. We can't really afford bronze here.
Paul, sorry to interrupt. Sir Geoffrey de Canterton.
Canterton.
Yeah, who is he?
Well, look at the helmet, look at the crossed legs, look at the shield. You're dealing with a crusader. What makes this a fascinating effigy is that instead of the hound under his feet, you've got a deer. So almost certainly what we're looking at here is one of the king's rangers.
So he'd have been responsible for putting to the sword anybody who messed with the royal game, would he?
He would certainly have been making sure that outsiders were kept outside, I think. Yep.
So he's pretty important to the king.
And he was a strong man.
Okay, we need to press on, I'm afraid, but that's excellent.
Yeah.
So where are we off to next, Paul?
Well, we're ignoring the...
Paul was desperate to show us more, but we had to get on. He explained that in July 1415, the nearby fields were used as a mustering ground for over 600 knights and archers. They sailed from Southampton to France with King Henry V to do battle with the French at Agincourt.
They gathered here to be blessed and inspected. Some of them had been to this church, some of them had been to King Sombourne, they'd been to Mass, they'd received the sacrament, and they were ready.
Once more into the breach, dear friends, once more.
The connection with Henry V revealed a very theatrical Shakespearean streak in our historian.
A man has modest stillness and humility. Stiffen the sinews, summon up the blood, disguise fair nature with hard-favoured rage. Cry, God for Harry, England, and St. George!
And Henry V wasn't the only English war hero we'd be finding out about today. We're halfway into our walk over history with me, Nick Knowles, our local historian, Paul Gardner, and our two Fleet Street journalists, Katie Aston and Jasper Humphries. Amazingly, our two city animals had managed to walk over 6 miles from Romsey to Michelmersh without serious complaint, and we're about to meet a unique craftsman.
I don't want to interrupt, but it's fabulous stuff. Hello. What a fantastic sound.
Love it. Thank you very much.
Christoph Gotting has his workshop in a 200-year-old farm building. There he hand makes violins for professional musicians from all over the world.
We do make them here, yes, from scratch.
What a great place to work as well.
It's a wonderful place. It's the granary is probably the oldest building of this complex, built in around 1700.
Really? Yeah.
And I restored it first before I came here.
How long will it take to actually make one of these violins?
About 2 months work time, and that is very slow. But then we are trying to reproduce old techniques, and especially in the varnishing stages, it takes a long time to do it.
It's sort of a bit of a cheeky question, but how close is this to a Stradivarius? Yeah.
We're trying to get as close as we can.
Right.
Basically, what Stradivari has done can never ever be repeated.
Right.
Quite.
Yeah.
Because we haven't grown into the tradition of making and haven't had his tuition and all that sort of thing. But one can only try to get close to it.
Right.
And hopefully we can get quite close.
You can't see a house.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm sort of
We'd walked almost 7 miles, and despite the picturesque surroundings, Jasper was yearning for his urban comforts.
Where are the taxis? You know, I mean, go in here, and the red buses. You know, I mean, that's what we want. And you know, I haven't seen an Indian takeaway.
We were en route to the village of Mottisfont on a path that was a main road used by the Roman army. As an army marches on its stomach, we wondered what they used to eat in the days before motorway service stations.
Would they have hamburgers?
I don't know, really.
No.
They just had meat.
Meat, big meat. Sort of...
Boar, probably.
Meat and wine.
Yeah.
Bear. Wolf.
Were the mammoths?
All had around that here.
We covered the 2 miles from Michelmersh to Mottisfont, doubling back along the Test Way to Mottisfont Abbey.
And there's some Japanese fish in the water there.
Just when I needed another hill.
Those are like trout.
Good they are.
I'll tell you what, though.
Our walkers would soon be able to take the weight off their aching feet and visit a Saxon well where they'd sample the waters of life.
Oh, look at this, though.
Oh, my God. It's worth that hike, I can tell you.
The abbey was built in 1201, and until Henry VIII dissolved the monasteries, it was an Augustinian priory. Then, in an extremely cunning real estate move, Henry swapped it for the London boroughs of Paddington and Chelsea.
Look at the windows, and you can see here all sorts of 18th century additions, just to tart it up.
Yeah.
And that man, Gilbert Russell, who bought it from the Sands family, because it's been all... What's...
Mr. Gammon says his chairs wanted to go with the half dozen in the parlour.
What's all this here, then?
We'd stumbled across a rehearsal of Wild Oats, Mottisfont's annual open-air production. It's a bawdy 18th century restoration comedy set in and around Stockbridge. Our heroine is part of a travelling band of actors. She fell on hard times when she managed to lose her son in the West Indies, and then found out they were living next door.
And in spite of calumny, he shall have justice. He would not let me be insulted because he saw me an unprotected woman without husband or a son. And shall he want justice? Brother, come.
After all that culture, Jasper and Katie were gasping for a G&T. However, Mottisfont had something much better on offer.
It's the coolest, clearest, purest, crystallist water you ever drank.
Ah.
The waters of life are over here.
Well, that's what I need, Paul, I can tell you.
That's why it's called Mottisfont. This is the magic fountain. Before there was anything here, there was this spring. And this is where the people in the village met.
Yeah.
They had their moot here, their mortis, and they came to this fountain, this great spring, where 200 gallons of water every minute. Monks always built near clear water. This is the water of life.
They were clean living.
You're quite keen on this water.
Come on, taste it.
There was only one thing to do, to find out why Paul was so enthusiastic about the so-called waters of life. The question was, would Jasper accept it without ice and a slice?
Right.
Can we try it?
This water is without compare.
Here we are. I walked a long way
Don't
over
fish
this.
do things in water?
Yes.
You know
Oh
what?
dear.
Isn't it
That's
good?
better than gin and tonic, but it could do that slice of lemon.
Well, I didn't bring a lemon with me, but the water, where do you think we're going?
Suitably refreshed, we were now ready to tackle the next leg. The question was, which way to go?
I'll show you where we're going next. There you go.
Okay, let's have a look.
Yeah, the trusty navigator.
Currently here at Mottisfont. We headed the 3 miles up the Tess Way to a village given its name because it was decreed part of the royal domain in the Domesday Book, King Sombourne. And behind the village church we discovered another royal connection, lying underneath a rather lovely field.
Oh, God.
Yes, indeed.
Where is the
taxi?
It's a cow field.
This cow field is reputed to have once been a great medieval palace belonging to John of Gaunt, son of Edward III and a hero of the 100 Years' War. By sending electronic currents through the ground, archaeologist Henry Stevens can determine whether back in the 14th century the area was once that sumptuous royal palace.
Right. Well, what you're actually looking at here, there's a whole load of lumps and bumps in the ground.
Right.
And you can see here, there's actually some bits of wall exposed.
Yeah.
This really was quite a huge site in its time. And the survey results we have to date show that it was not only large, but also very complex with lots of different working areas in it. And was a site befitting a medieval man of John of Gaunt's rank.
So we can look forward in a couple of thousand years' time to a herd of heifers roaming across Buckingham Palace, can we?
Well, I wouldn't like to give the definitive comment on that, but there's no reason why not. No.
Well, thanks for showing us around. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Good luck with your survey.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, here we are, getting close to the journey's end, and nowhere more appropriate than a graveyard.
Our historian Paul was keen to tell us of a hero of the air who's commemorated in the church.
For me, this place is famous and memorable for Tommy Sopwith.
Right.
He died a few years ago, aged 101.
And who's Thomas Sopwith?
Thomas Sopwith.
The camel.
Is the camel, right.
Oh, the aeroplane guy.
Well done,
At
Nick.
the age of 26, he created the RAF. He made 17,000 planes and saved the English force, the British forces on the Western Front. And then in the Second War, he invented the Hurricane. He knew what was coming from Germany.
The Hurricane?
The Hurricane.
Sopwith made the Hurricane?
Sopwith made the Hurricane. And the Battle of Britain was actually won by hurricanes.
Yeah.
And it was won by that 1,000 pool of hurricanes that his foresight and generosity had made available to the country.
Amazing.
So, you know, there is a man who in 2 wars saved our country.
Amazing. And we've never heard of him.
Some people have never heard of him. A great man.
Yes.
We'd walked over 8 miles and the sun was setting, but we still had another 4 to go, eastward along the Clarendon Way to Farley Mount, which sits on one of the highest points in the county and is a monument to an extremely heroic act.
I can tell you.
But I take it the view is worthwhile up there.
The view is very worthwhile.
Yeah.
We were flagging, yet Paul urged us onwards and upwards, promising us an amazing story.
What is the big secret, Paul?
What is the big secret? Any guesses?
It's
I can't quite read it from here.
It is a monument. Yeah. It's a monument to a horse. It is the most amazing monument.
It's a horse.
And what happened was that a man called Paul at St. John, who owned a manor nearby, he was a fox hunting, and he was on a horse, and he didn't really know the ground. And they came across a 30-foot chalk pit, and the horse became aware of it, did the leap, kept the rider on his back, and they both lived. And he then christened the horse Beware Chalk Pit. And 11 months later, he entered him for the Worthy Plate Down Cup. And the horse romped home a winner. And when the horse died,
here he is.
That went up. That folly. This was my horse. He was a great horse. Let the whole world see what a good horse he was.
The memorial to Beware Chalk Pit was our last historical location on what had been an epic 12-mile journey. It was time to find out if our 2 city slickers had enjoyed their time in the great outdoors.
Jasper, first of all, what do you make of it all?
Well, I've never seen so much greenery. It's amazing. I mean, on a sort of slightly serious note, I mean, it's been fascinating, the history, and I go down the 303 through Hampshire. I'm going to see it in a completely new light now.
So will you go out and walk again?
I will, but I just give them a rest for a while. I'm going to put them in champagne. Yes, but it is a lovely, and it's a lovely county. Really, it's fantastic.
Yeah. What about you? Because will your friends at work believe you've done what you've done?
I don't think they're going to believe it, that I actually made it. I have to say I've never been so tired in my life, but I have thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been very interesting. I don't think I normally work this. I don't tell my boss that.
Oh, well, look, thank you very much for all of you for coming along. I'm afraid that's not your plane coming to take you home. I've got something else a little bit special for the end of this.
So appropriately enough, we decided to end on horseback, and although they were keen to sit down and take the weight off their feet, Jasper and Katie would have preferred their transport not to have a mind of its own. But once they were up, they were up.
Never in my life.
Well, that's the end of another walk over history. Hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. Cheerio.
Next week, we're in Kent, taking 2 chefs on a walk over history both on and off the Isle of Sheppey. And we even have time to get some shopping in.